let me invite Honorable Mr. Ajit Balan, Honorable Secretary of Cosmopolitan Education Society, to address to all the participants. Uh, Mr. Balan, you just need to unmute yourself.
Good evening, everyone. It's a fabulous day. I've been attending sessions after sessions, and this is one session which Dr. Shobha Menon wanted me to attend. I'm very thankful to Jamin you for initiating this particular session, especially both the speakers, Dr. Hemlata and my very good friend, Professor Asif Rampurwala. It's great to connect with you once again. Now, in this post-COVID-19, everyone has to take a call that what is there for us, how are we going to take the next step. Today morning I was attending a session where Dr. Kiran Bedi was addressing the audience. She said the most unsung hero is the teaching fraternity. Now teaching fraternity has shown the way how to come out of a COVID-19 situation, right from your preschool teacher to your university teachers. These are the people who have taken the extra step. All of a sudden, you find all the entire teaching fraternity who has become tech savvy, which was never expected. Thank you, Dr. Shobha Menon, for inviting me and making me a part of this session. And I wish all the participants, it's huge. I can see the number of 349, which is there. That's really huge. So, Asif, we are connecting once again. And Dr. Hemlata, great to have you on board. Let's have a very fruitful session. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Balan. So now let me introduce our first speaker of this webinar, Dr. Hemlata Bagla, and inspiring principal of one of the most premier institute of Mumbai, the KC College. Dr. Hemlata obtained her doctorate in inorganic chemistry, specializing in nuclear and radiochemistry at the age of just 25. In her 29 years old academic experience, she has published more than 170 research papers in national and international journals, including 9 publications in NASA's astrophysical database. She'll be speaking today about her experiences with the technology and also about her experiences with the psychology of the professors towards the technology. Joining her, we have Mr. Asif Rampurwala as our second speaker of this particular webinar, who is the Vice Principal of Vidyalankar School of Information Technology. Mr. Asif did his Masters in Computer Science from Mumbai University and has a teaching experience of more than 15 years. He is also a professional member of Association of Computing Machinery and that is ACM, and Computer Society of India, that is CSI. He has been conducting corporate trainings in the area of business intelligence, information technology, risk management, and software development using Java from many years. Mr. Asif will be talking about the real solutions that every institute can adopt and smoothen the educational processes, which is actually the need of an hour. Now, before I invite both of our speakers to shower their knowledge, flow of knowledge, I'll just brief you all about the basic thought behind why we have selected this particular topic. So to start with, I would like to share my own story. So before I started my entrepreneurial journey, I was also a college lecturer, teaching in many colleges of Mumbai University. I can even see some of my gurus joining this webinar from Ghanshyamdas Saraf College, where I've taught for some years. So when I was teaching, I saw a problem in the process. Most of the processes of administration were manual, and informational flow even in the college was really weak. So what I've decided to solve all those issues and with the help of technology, and made one college intelligence application. Now during my when I after I left the entrepreneurial teaching, and when I joined the entrepreneurial journey, during my journey I've trained more than 1,000 professors on how to use our particular software. And what I've realized one thing, that there are more than 50% of the faculties who are technologically averse. Of course, it's not their fault. It's just that they are so habituated with the traditional process. They don't want any change, which made them technologically reluctant. Meanwhile, online assessment by University of Mumbai brought the first mandatory technology in every teacher's life, and well, this pandemic is going to bring out all of it. According to the study by Harvard University, we might live in an environment of social distancing till the year 2024. We hope it. I mean, we hope it is not true, but still. And so each one of us needs to make a good friendship with the technology. But how? For that, I would like Dr. Hemlata to take the charge and show us the way forward. Now, before she takes the charge, please note that at the end of this session, Principal of MVM College, Dr. G.K. Kalkoti, will announce the third webinar of this particular series, Let's Talk Education. Also, participants can ask questions by writing on the chat box, and the most relevant 5 questions will be picked and will be asked to the panelists. So, Dr. Hemlata, the screen is yours now.
Thank you, Jamin. Am I audible? Okay. So, good evening, friends. First of all, let me thank Dr. Ajit Balan, Honorary Secretary of Cosmopolitan Trust, Principal of Walia College, Dr. Shobna Menon, Asif Rampurwala. I'm so happy to share platform with him. He's a KCite, he's an alumnus. So it feels very good when your own students reach that mark that you share the platform with them. Thank you to IQAC team of Cosmopolitan's Walia College. And I'm really privileged to be part of this particular series where we are talking about education. So let's talk education. And today's webinar, we are discussing making faculties technology ready. So a warm welcome to this talk, all dear principals who are participants, vice principals, heads of the departments of colleges, dear friends, and I can see many KC teachers being part of this program. I'm really happy to be on this platform. When I was told that you have to speak on teacher's psyche, I realized that yes, much has to be spoken about them. So I would like to talk about first that how tech savvy we are. Coming to ordering the food, watching films, studying, taking information from Google, what teachers do not do. So we have acquired that technology when it is in every aspect of our days, how we navigate our way even to the workplace or different places across the world. So while the third industrial revolution was characterized and driven by information technology, we are already into fourth industrial revolution. So trying to align education 4.0 with industry 4.0. Yes, we as teachers who are maybe participants here or teaching, we did hear about industry 3.0 when we were born, and that time the revolution was going on. So basically the journey has been as children to students, as parents, as teachers, as professionals. So we have seen the journey of industry 3.0 to industry 4.0 and aligned with education 3.0 and education 4.0. And this journey has been, again, I repeat, from information technology to artificial intelligence. How ready are we to adopt this technology? I shall give you an example about the world's best institution, MIT. Study says that 40% of students chose computer science, artificial intelligence, or new age technology, while only 7% of faculty of MIT is specialized in this subject. I repeat, 40% of students choose computer science and artificial intelligence, whereas only 7% faculty is specialized. And this is not a note that I want to leave teachers with, but at the same time, every teacher is struggling or it is trying or aspiring to learn technology and going ahead. Very soon, they are very sure that all their teachers will be aligned with Industry 4.0. But there is so much gap in world's best technology institution. It has to be there in other worlds as well, other institutions as well. But I believe that until unless teachers get geared up and upskill their knowledge, as they are the main conduit for the shift, their presence in this tech world has to be relevant to the needs of the student fraternity. to be industry ready, to be market ready. So we teachers will not, if we do not adopt technology, I think very soon we will be redundant. But I would say about teachers that you will all agree with me that when we have witnessed these revolutions, what does it translate into? We were the teachers who continue to use chalk and duster. Same teachers have taught computer sciences and information technology subjects on the blackboard. We have used overhead projectors, OHPs. All floppy disk and CDs came in our time. We learned to move on to LCD projectors, then laptops. We learned to handle pen drive, and every time when we chose that, we picked that, we felt, yes, we are so tech savvy, and we moved around with pride. And now, after all this, is the time to use online platforms. And now we have to accept this shift, and it's gone a leap ahead. It's gone from a physical space into a digital space. We teachers have only one goal, I would say that. And our goal is that the impression on our students should last for a lifetime. And we ourselves have been always inspired by our teachers, and that has entered, has permeated into our lives, and that is the main foundation of all our decisions. So it has helped us even decision making, even getting inspired to continue to learn. So we teachers are always lifelong learners. We gel with the students, we acquire from them, and we move on. And that's a reason we do not shy away from learning from the students and using the technology again to teach them back. So teaching is one of those careers where you learn something new every day, and many educators cite this as one of the main things they hope to get out of their career. This is what we extract from our career, and this is what leaves behind the satisfaction to us. When a teacher says their goal is to make a difference, this is what they mean. They not only want to change the lives of their students, they want to change the life of the education. Teachers' impact on the students lasts for a lifetime. And with that thought, we believe that the learning curve has to move on because we are teachers who will continue to make a difference. Coming back to the coronavirus and this COVID times, I didn't want to start on a negative note, but in this time, on one hand, we listen to news. On the other hand, we continue to teach. Who else could be more balanced than a teacher? The impact of coronavirus outbreak is being felt by millions of people across the globe. With industry disrupted, we hear the news that economy is in turmoil, schools and colleges have closed their doors, every operation has been transferred online, and attempt to plan for an unknown future. There are several lessons that the higher education community can learn from this global crisis. And one of that many lessons which we have learned is quick adoption of technology in the field of education. It was previously an option, then it became compulsion, and now we have absolutely no option. The learning curve of adoption of technology in the field of education, from a learner's perspective, from a flat learning curve, a linear curve has suddenly become a hockey stick. And the sudden increase in demand reflects the urgency felt by many universities to quickly get acquainted with the latest in online technology. On one hand, borders have closed down, are shut, which we have never experienced before. And because of the spread of virus, I think this is once in lifetime, once in the centuries, nobody has heard. It's become a history. The borders have closed on one hand, but I think the borders for education has opened up on the other hand. I shall give you one example. A few days back, we organized a lecture, and the guest speaker was none other than a scientist from WHO. And she spoke about COVID, its impact and strategies. How do you mitigate the strategies? And we realized we wouldn't have reached her probably, it wouldn't be COVID time. It's because we are on online platform, we realize we can reach out to anyone we know. So yes, we have opened up the borders. This global crisis have opened up the borders for education, for the field of education. Reaching out to 100 participants in the first program. So if you ask my experience, for all the teachers who are still worried about using these platforms, as a teacher, as a principal, I would say there are few steps to overcome this psyche. Number one is we explore different platforms, and Asif will be talking about those platforms. As you all must be exploring, you are here part of Zoom team. You have opened up the Zoom app and you are part of this webinar. So Zoom was first which came our way. We tried to explore other platforms like Google Meet, which was Hangouts before. We tried to open up other conferencing tool, which is Microsoft Teams. And we tried, which is the best one. We went on and searched, yes, Zoom has 400 million users. That's the best. Then we found out Microsoft Teams is catching up. It has 4 million learners, 200 million learners. And then Google Meet is catching up, is 2 million learners. So we kept on searching which is the best platform. But a teacher requires a platform and can reach out to many students, at least a class of 100. And we realized the use of Zoom was better than others. Then this came up, the security reasons. Then we were told if you buy Zoom Pro, you make advanced systems, it will be very safe. You can log the meetings. We learned this everything in 2 months' time. We never used what we never used in 5 years. We used in 5 weeks. As a principal, I went on telling my teachers, let's organize webinar. Let's tell teachers that they must organize webinars and invite people from different parts of the world. And what we didn't do over the years, we could do in these 5 weeks. So these 3 platforms, which we have tried and tested, and we realized we can use these platforms to reach out to teachers, to students for their assignments. We can use Google Classroom for assignments. We can really create quizzes. We can create tutorials and also online examinations. So teacher has to explore new platform during this time, and they should not shy away for using technology. I am sure very positive about the teachers that they are the first, I think, professionals who know how to adopt new things, adopt with new batch of students, adopt with new technology. And this particular example, which I want to leave you with, and I was really touched when I saw that so much has been done already about technology. You will see this review lecture. The title is Technology of Teaching by B.F. Skinner, Department of Psychology, Harvard University. Please note this paper is, as a part of the lecture of the books, is written in 1964, published in 1964. And if you go to the next slide, and if you are able to read that paper, you will understand what is it written. Can I have the next slide, please? I've highlighted the slide for you. If you all get it, you must read. It says, teaching machines are widely misunderstood. Please imagine this is 1964. It is often supposed that they are simple devices which mechanize functions once served by human teachers. Testing is an example. The teacher must discover what the student has learned and can do so with the help of machines. And the author writes, the next line, again, you must understand as teachers, as students, as principals, vice principals, that Dr. Skinner quotes that nearly 40 years ago, and he mentions about Sidney Presley, and he mentions the year 1926. He pointed out that a student learned something when told whether his answers are right or wrong, and that self-scoring machines could help him better. Talking about machines, they're talking about self-scoring machines in the year 1926 is about a century. And whatever is written in the book, it's coming true. That these machines they talked about, they had explored, they were not as advanced as computers are, but they spoke about reducing the load of teachers and working on such machines, helping evaluate a student, helping them to use different technologies that time, existing technologies that time, and also how do you induce in a student to learn without being taught. And all these things are written in this particular paper, 1964. So I believe that if such things existed, they've spoken about, so is after 53 years, we should not be even thinking or even getting hesitated to come out of the shell. It's just you need to go online, click on different platforms. Asif will be able to tell you more platforms. We have been using only 3 to 4, what we find easy and convenient. Explore yourself, you will never go wrong. They are so user-friendly. Touch upon anything. You will use what is required, whether it is scheduling a meeting or joining a meeting or sharing the screen. Everything is so user-friendly. Start doing it, and very soon you will enjoy recording your lecture, going online, save and creating e-content. Let me tell you, friends, lastly, before I end, it was so difficult to inspire teachers to create e-content. They kept telling me so much is available on the net. How what we teach will add to it. But now, in last 2 weeks, I've received 53 lectures only from junior college teachers, which they're recorded, and they're ready for students. They were ready to go online. Within 1 week, they realized the sound is not coming good. The second week, they realized the shadow was wrong, the light was not good. And third week, they have become masters. In first week, we gave them just do on your own. Second week, we provided technology help. And third week, they're saying they do not need help at all. And they have been able to record lectures using mobile phones, using iPad, using different platforms. And they were given freedom to use any platform. They were given support, technology support, if they need any help, but within a week or 53 on online. I suppose teachers have meant we only need to explore. Teachers will always continue to explore new technological skills. They will keep adopting them absolutely flawlessly, and they will continue to remain interface. No online platform, no other interface can stop interaction of teacher with the student. They will evolve. They know how to interact. Engage students in different ways. They are creators. They are creative people. They will continue evolving themselves and continue evolving the world around. Thank you so much. And from here onwards, I want the tech expert himself to talk about the different online platforms which we can explore or participants can explore. Over to Asif. Thank you so much once again for giving me this opportunity to be with all of you.
Good afternoon, rather good evening, everyone. I must say I'm over. Hello, am I audible? Yes. Okay. So I am overwhelmed. Thank you, Bagla ma'am, for the overwhelming praise. It's always a pleasure to be associated with anybody from KC, being my alma mater. I am I must say I must thank everybody who made this possible. Shubham and ma'am for having invited me, my principal for having recommended me, Dr. Rohini Kelkar, and of course it's always a pleasure to connect with Mr. Ajit Balan again. Jamin, thank you for all the support, and you've been very patient with us to handle all of this. So let me straight away dive into the things which we are going to discuss today. Thank you all the dignitaries, principals, vice principals, HODs from various colleges across India to have joined in for the session today. I would try to keep it, technical to the degree that it needs to be. I will refrain myself from getting into jargon, but I would like to, apologize for any technicalities which might be inadvertent, I might end up using because of my background. But I will try to be as, simplistic in my explanation as possible. Okay, and I just thought of with starting off my session today with this lovely couple of images which I read about. Many of y'all might have read about, Rolls-Royce, or at least have seen the cars around. So that's one of the most premier car manufacturer in the world. It's a British company. They are actually a subsidiary organization of BMW, but they make the most premium cars in the world. Now, next to it is the Rolls-Royce Honey, which is currently being produced by the Rolls-Royce, organization because they are unable to produce cars anymore. So what they've done is they've come up with a tagline of making the most exclusive honey in the world. So they have this acres of land in UK where currently no cars are being made, and they've used that to repopulate the dying species of honeybees and creating some of the most exclusive honey and probably the most expensive honey in the world. So this is the time of COVID-19. Organizations, companies, industries such as Rolls-Royce, for all for everybody is having to reinvent itself. Who could have said, maybe 2 months ago, that Rolls-Royce would be making honey. So if we are, of the opinion of being, classist, of saying that, we know everything and we know what's going to happen, God has ways of, making us all go back to situations which, we never have thought of. So let me, oh my God. I'm so sorry. This is what happens with technology sometimes. Too many things going on my screen. All right. So let me start off with the challenges faced by the three most important pillars in academia. The student, obviously, starting with. The students currently are, in a situation where they have been pushed into a system to learn, which they probably had not, paid for or bargained for. Okay, so many of them are unprepared for this kind of mode of learning. Though, we tend to think that the current generation, the Gen Z, is very, very tech savvy because they have mobile phones in their hands. It's not true to that extent in terms when it comes to actual learning. If you look at most of the studies from the open courseware platforms such as Coursera and Udemy, there is a high rate of non-completion when it comes to online courses. Okay, that's especially true with the younger generation because they are this 30-second video generation now. They don't have the time or the energy to spend on 20 hours of lectures online. However, saying that, they are used to the technology in the sense they have access to technology and they feel comfortable with trying new things out. The only challenge with them is that they feel the novelty of anything new wears off much more quickly than it would with us. The other problem is that they're interrupted learning because they get interrupted with so many new things happening around them, and they are bombarded with too many challenges and too many distractions around them. The challenge with a faculty or a teacher is how do you measure and validate your learning? Because in a classroom environment, we're used to understanding or gauging through non-verbal cues, through asking questions, whether what we have been trying to convey is being conveyed properly, if there is a course correction needed, if something needs to be emphasized. All of that is possible in a classroom, which we are too accustomed to. Now, suddenly, when we have moved into this space wherein we are asking teachers to do something online, they are unable to understand, okay, we can do the delivery, but how do we measure whether their students have learned what they are supposed to? Also, there's a very big difference for faculty to understand between online delivery versus online learning. They're two different things. Delivery is something which I think everybody has solved, as ma'am rightly said, using Zoom and other tools like Teams, Microsoft Teams and Google Hangouts and all of those have allowed the teacher to be available to the students even during this time. However, the problem has come in terms of the actual knowledge being transferred. How much of it is happening is a challenge which needs to be measured. Lots of studies are going on immediately right now because, see, this is also culturally different. Every country is different. Every state is different. Within the state, every region is different. So, what works in a very urban area like Mumbai for, let's say, students who are studying business management or, philosophy, in comparison to students who are studying engineering, would be completely different. At the same time, if we start comparing students from Mumbai to somewhere in a rural, Tamil Nadu or rural areas of Chhattisgarh, it would be a completely different learning. So these are the challenges. The other problem which an institution faces, is that how do you create, and maintain those distance learning platforms? Okay, now all of this needs to be possible within a short period of time. At the same time, what do we do after the COVID-19 situation? So institutions are always worried about, okay, so if it's a short-term thing, do we really need to invest? Okay, if we have to go back to teach the classroom mode, and if we have to follow, social distancing norms, what are we going to do? In the current scenario, social isolation for the students and the teachers has also becoming a big challenge for institutions to be worried about. Another very important aspect to it is that once you do completely digital or online, we might face the same thing which Coursera and Edudemy are facing. We might face a rise in dropout rates because students, one, might not be able to, the motivation to continue might not remain with the students. So these are things which we need to seriously look at. Many of these are already known to the teachers, and as we go along, we will look at it in a little more detail. Also, if you look at the current students who are, in the classroom, we call them as the Generation Z. Okay, so we have the Gen X, Gen Y. Currently, the millennials have gone, and we have the Gen Z. Now, the Gen Z is the generation which has, this is according to a survey that 60% say that they are likely to collaborate and share their knowledge with others online. So they believe in collaborative learning rather than learning, through just videos which are one-way modes of communication. So YouTube videos are not really the way these students sometimes are able to learn well. Okay. Also, 50% of them can't live without YouTube. However, these YouTube videos are less than 5 minutes long. Okay. They're not 50 minutes. They're not 1 hour. 93% of the students surveyed said that the students feel confident as they understand technology well. Okay, so they're comfortable with moving. This is what is the perception. Okay, now, so technology is a must if you want to cater to this generation. Now, this I'm saying not just from the COVID-19 current scenario, I'm saying post-COVID. Once we move into the, go back to say normal, the new normal will be very different. The new normal will not be the normal which we had pre-COVID. And that's where the technology is going to be a factor. So it has been a blessing in disguise for technology enthusiasts, especially companies like German's company, who would be into the space of edutechnology, education technology, because that's what is going to be the future. And though it was moving through a curve, it was being slowly implemented. Now we've suddenly had an exponential rate of adoption of this technology. Educators who are teachers, faculty members across the colleges have the problem of, understanding how do you rethink, education in this time of COVID. One of the major concerns which people have understood is that the technology which we were talking about, okay, has already reached to its situation where we have to implement it now or never. Okay, in the world of knowledge where everything is available on a click of a mouse, it's very important for teachers to reinvent themselves, to make themselves relevant, to keep themselves in the, in existence. So it's an existential question sometimes for educators, because if technology allows me to, go out to the masses, then where is the question of, colleges filling up seats because there were like 100 seats or 200 seats? Universities through distance mode, through online mode, can reach out to thousands. So as ma'am said, MIT, for example, if everybody wants to study at MIT, and if it's an online system, MIT might as well say that instead of taking the next batch of 1,000 students, across streams, they might take 1 lakh. And there will be colleges and institutions across the world who will face a crunch because of this. So there are things which educators need to evolve and institutions need to consider. If I talk from the perspective of institutions, what should the institutions do? The institutions need to start investing in something called as learning science or pedagogy and digital pedagogy. This is the most important aspect today, because people have been talking about technology in bits and pieces. There has never been a scenario where they have been looked at it as a whole. Like today, nobody talks about internet. Internet is a given. Everybody knows that internet is there. We talk about applications and use cases of the internet. Okay, so when we talk about systems today, we're talking about individual technologies, but in the long run, all these technologies will have to be integrated into a seamless experience for the student, where the classroom, inside the classroom and outside the classroom, technology will become an enabler for all those interactions. So universities need to let go of this academic know-all stance. They need to collaborate with industry, which is in the area of digital content creation and disbursement. If we say that we will keep our content locked up in books, notebooks, or in PowerPoint presentations, and I will not share it with anybody because that's my IP, that's my intellectual property. Yes, it is your intellectual property, but if you don't share it, it's going to become obsolete. You need to make it relevant to the today's generation, and today's generation needs things like infographics. They need things like animations and interactive kind of communication. All of that might not be possible for an individual teacher to gain all those to master all those skills. It's not required. You need to take the help of the experts for developing your content to the way you need it to be, and the delivery will be of course be in the domain of the teacher. So the teacher's life skills, teaching life skills is the need for the future. So institutions need to evolve from just teaching facts and figures to teaching skills. So now we are, the government has been talking about the skill-based industries and all of that. All of that is very, very relevant, because educating citizens in this interconnected world is more important than just about anything. So today, I would just like to talk about the 3 silos in which, most of the technologies get categorized into. Okay, I'm talking in them as silos. As we go ahead, you will see that the lines between these 3 will blur. Okay, and there are many technologies even today which probably fit into more than one of these categories. So the first category of softwares or technologies which you might have heard of come into something called as online delivery platforms. So when we talk about Zoom, for example, just because we are using Zoom right now, it's a delivery platform, okay, which allows us to share audio video content in real time. It allows us to do real time interactions. So I can talk to you, you can communicate with me using chat windows or even voice and video. We also have the facility to record our session and then view it at a later stage. There is another category of software and technology which we call as learning management systems, or LMS for short. Most of the institutions, at least the the good institutions, have a working LMS in place. Okay, we probably are not at a stage in comparison to, say, let's say US or Europe, where everything is managed, everything is done through the LMS itself. We have probably lots of offline processes because of various reasons, but we have a working LMS in majority of the institutions today. So these LMSs are systems which allow students, communicate with the faculty. The things which are allowed within an LMS would be things like course management. Students will be able to enroll for a course. Teachers would be able to mark attendance, send assignments, take submissions, even do quizzes and tests online. All of those would be part. So it will be an integrated solution from admissions to the student graduating. The entire life cycle of a student can be handled within an LMS kind of a software. Examples for that would be, the most common examples are Moodle and Blackboard. Okay, and then there is the digital content development tools. So you have a working LMS, you may have a delivery platform like Zoom or Microsoft Teams or anything else. The most important thing to realize is it's no longer enough to just sit in front of a computer and talk. You need to have content which is engaging. And to develop content which is engaging, you need things like animations, infographics, interactive layouts, and design. So there are tools which are available for this. Now, let me just go into a list of those tools. I had to refrain myself from talking about just one tool per category, because then it would be perceived as I'm trying to promote any one particular technology. So I do not want to come across as promoting a particular technology. However, there are the market leaders, and we can talk about them to a degree. So let's talk about the market leaders today in terms of collaborative platforms which are support live video communication. So you have things like Hangouts, Microsoft Teams, Skype, WhatsApp, Zoom, DingTalk, if anybody's familiar with, it's a platform which is created by Alibaba, and Lark. So all of these, and there are many more, obviously, these are some of the ones which are the leaders right now. These allow you to do live video communication with your students and your staff. Now, if you really look at it, which one suits a particular organization? That's a very important question to answer. Okay, all of these tools, give or take, do the same thing. Okay, they provide almost all the same features. Okay, some might be better at something, sometimes some might be a little lesser at something else. However, as the time goes by, and because more and more people adopt these technologies, they will all be able to provide the same levels of quality. Now, one of the things which every institution needs to question itself is, have we already invested into something? So for example, if you have already a Microsoft Academic Alliance partner, you already have made the investment of, putting in the money for, let's say maybe you're using Outlook as your email client. Okay, so when you use Outlook and you've used it officially, you've actually paid money to Microsoft. Microsoft gives you the entire suite to you. It gives you the technologies like Microsoft Teams, Skype for Business, which is different from Skype. Okay, Skype for Business is completely different. So Skype for Business, it gives you the opportunity to use things like the Office 365, which is a huge platform in itself, and allows for an entire way of delivery and communicating with students without having to use any other technology. So if you are a Microsoft Academic Alliance partner where you have invested already in Microsoft, my advice would be, you don't need to pay anything more to anybody else. You can just, within the Microsoft ecosystem, you can do everything which is required for delivery of your sessions in whatever format you want, whether it's animated, whether it's videos, whether it's live chat, everything. So Teams is a technology which actually brings all of these together in a single screen. That's why it's becoming very popular nowadays, because otherwise Microsoft had put this across in various different application names such as Skype and PowerPoint and Excel and Word and all of that. It brings all of them together, Calendar and Outlook. The other one, which is very, very popular nowadays and is being adopted by many colleges and institutions, is Google Hangouts and Google G Suite. Because the G Suite is actually free for majority of the people, because up till 10,000 students or participants, it allows you to work with them. So unless you are an organization which is 10,000 plus, G Suite will probably be easily fit for you, and it basically has no cost as long as you are a registered educational institute. So many of the institutions who have not paid on a Microsoft platform would, ideally would want to go to Google to do the G Suite implementation, and it provides probably the same features. Okay, the only thing is that if you're very used to using PowerPoint, Word, and Excel or stuff like that, there is a learning curve associated with moving to Google technologies, which are very, very intuitive, very, very easy to learn. However, there is a slight learning curve to it in comparison to the Microsoft technologies, because people have already grown up learning these technologies. WhatsApp and Zoom provide a pure, online delivery and collaboration using web conferencing and webinars and chat rooms and stuff like that. So that is possible. WhatsApp to a lesser degree. Zoom to, allows participants up to 1,000 participants. If you go for the Enterprise Plus version, which is expensive, it's quite expensive for institutions if they haven't budgeted for it. But there are institutions who have their open, run universities which run distance and open learning institutions. They automatically have invested in these platforms actually. So if they've already invested, they could automatically leverage from that. So I always mention institutions should leverage with what they have already put their money in. The second category of technologies which come is called the learning management systems, or the digital learning management system. There's no difference between the two. So Google Classroom is an LMS. Google Hangouts is just a delivery. Google Classroom allows the entire life cycle of the student to be managed, from creation of classrooms to enrolling students for those classrooms, attendance, assignments, assessment. All of that is possible within Google Classroom. That's important because when you compare it to, let's say, a platform like Zoom, you are unable to get feedback in terms of, you can maybe get formative feedback, but you may not be able to get, you might not be able to evaluate the students if you need to put a grade on their mark sheets. Okay, so at that time, Google Classroom will come to your rescue. Moodle is another open source platform wherein the entire software can be hosted by the institution. Now, this is again a question which every institution needs to answer for themselves, whether they would want to own the software and run the software on their own servers, which will require an investment. Okay, they will require 24/7 connectivity. They will require an IT team to support, or they could go to a cloud platform such as a Google Classroom or a Blackboard Learn. Blackboard Learn is a very, very highly evolved learning management system, which has been one of the most popular learning management systems across UK and US universities. So Blackboard Learning actually was originally built on the Moodle platform, but now it is an entirely proprietary thing. There is a cost associated to it. I know many institutions in India have started adopting it, and it provides a rich suite of features which allows the entire life cycle of a student to be managed from a single screen or a single application. Then you don't need to go to multiple different softwares for different things. Of course, there are a huge number of other applications out there like ClassDojo, and you also have Schooler, which allows you to integrate your Microsoft Office software into an education platform. So there are lots and lots of technologies out there. I will share this presentation, and all of these are clickable links. So you can actually click them and, check what you want to start, you can explore them for yourself. I'm so sorry. All right, just give me 1 sec, Jamin. Just about to end. So the last one is the digital learning content development tools, which are tools which are used for developing content. Here you have things like ThingLink, which allows you to work with multimedia, that is videos, images, resources. One of the things which I will like everybody to try out is something called as Nearpod, NEARPOD. Okay, so this is Nearpod allows you to do interactive, like things like post-its. You can interact with an entire classroom and ask questions. You can actually take, you can interact with the students in terms of going beyond just quizzes, just like more than MCQs. You can actually get into descriptive question and answers and stuff like that using Nearpod. So there are lots and lots of tools which are available, which teachers need to explore as a community, and then need to share their learnings with each other to find the best fits for each use case. So as I said, we have 3 categories of software tools which we are looking at. One, that is the learning management systems, which are a full-fledged, legacy systems which allow the entire management of the courses. 2, delivery softwares such as Zoom and Teams. And the third one is the tools which are being used for developing rich content which is available today, okay, which is not just video lectures or YouTube videos. All right, so Jamin, that's it from my side.
Yeah, it was, I guess, totally insightful as expected from both of you. So now it's time for a few questions that I'll be asking to both of you. So I'll address the questions to every one of you, each one of you. So here we have with the first question, which is for Hemlata madam. The question from Deep Kadam. Question is, with the change in technology, isn't it important to change the content of syllabus? Is for Hemlata madam.
Yes. Yes, it is very much need of the hour. I will just give an example. I was addressing BMS students, and I asked them, when you go out of the college and during the day when you complete your college assignments, what you do? And they said, we have to learn Python because that is what the industry is looking at. So now let me share the person who, I think Dipali, who put the question, is it? So the point is, now when we are moving on to become university, so KC College is becoming university. We have the name of the university is HSNC University, which will commence from 1st September 2020. And let me share with each one of you that we have tried that the entire syllabi is industry endorsed. And we realize statistics has to be part of many syllabi. Curriculum needs to be changed if you are really wanting to align our education with Industry 4.0. Otherwise, many of our students will not get jobs. So rightly pointed out. So if the colleges are becoming autonomous, they should also look at curriculum, that it has to change and that curriculum should be endorsed by industry.
All right. So we have another question, which is for Asif sir. Actually, there are a list of questions which are totally targeted to Asif sir. So the question is by Sangeeta Makkar ma'am. The question is, we want to understand how to integrate seamless experience for students on an online platform.
I'm sorry, Jamin, can you come again?
I'll just repeat it. The question is, we want to understand how to integrate seamless experience for students on an online platform.
See, when we were talking about integrating it, it comes with two things, you know. The one is it requires training for the faculty as well as the student. You know, they need to be made aware of how to integrate this. You know, if the students are left alone and asked to watch these online videos and come for the exam or the test, it's not going to work. You know, the entire methodology has to evolve. It has to move away from an exam-based scenario to an experiential learning, where we build in, you know, skill development. You know, we build in, you know, active learning components to it. There is something called as adaptive technologies, which I didn't even discuss today. You know, where we move and merge various technologies which we are already using to build a seamless platform. Now, this is easier said than done. It requires experience, it requires effort, and it requires persistence and commitment. So it is possible, and there are lots of successful cases out there. It requires, you know, when we, you know, one of the things which I always say, we talk about a lot of research. How many teachers, you know, actually do research in pedagogy? You know, and how many people would actually spend time in understanding how students learn and how they can make them learn better? And that is a commitment which every teacher needs to take themselves. And then automatically the technology and the tools will be there. Believe me, they're already there to help them. It's just that the commitment needs to come first.
Asif sir, there are a few more questions for you. I'll read out the second one, which is really a little sharp one. The question is by Mr. Atul Thate. The question is, sir, we all are discussing from faculty point of view, but what about the ultimate stakeholders, which are our students? I mean, he is raising a question about the connectivity that the students are facing. So we just talk about the faculties, how about the students?
I think Atul is a good friend of mine. So, you know, the sharp questions always come from the friend. So it is an important aspect. Please understand, you know, I'm getting a lot of people who are telling me that, you know, what if the students can't afford a mobile phone? What if the students can't afford technology? What if there is no internet connectivity? Believe me, what happens is, if there was a time and age where people could not afford books, right? If there is enough people who want it, there are government, you know, initiatives which can be made to make these things available. Unless we move into that direction, you know, it is never going to happen. So getting a tablet for 4,000 or 3,000 rupees is very easy. If the government wants to subsidize it for students, it's even far more easier. Okay, so it is possible to get that. Also, many of these tools allow offline learning. So it does not require 100% internet connectivity at all the times. It can be synced, you know, at regular intervals. So it does not requirement. It's not a problem of technology. It is not. It is no longer a hurdle. It requires commitment, as I said.
There is one more question for you, sir. Question is by Professor Anna Fernandez. She says that what collaborative platform should institutions invest at the present scenario?
Again, as I said, every institution needs to take this question personally, because what happens is, you might have already invested in something. So if you have already invested in something, to junk it and to move to something new will be a very, very expensive proposition. At the same time, I will not advise you. So if you have already started using Moodle, for example, you can then look at how to leverage that itself. If you've already invested in buying, say, Microsoft licenses for, Office 365 for your employees and all of that, then it is better to go in that direction. If you have already invested in creating Google accounts and Google as your platform, then so moving away from something which is already working is not what I will advise. Just because Asif says this technology is better or that technology is better, it's not necessary. If it is a question of a new institution coming up which has never had anything, okay, then over there you can always argue about which technology is best. But because these are all institutions which are already in place, I will not believe that nothing is available there. There would be these things which might not be, which might be working in silos or in isolation. It just needs to be put in as a system-wide, as an organization-wide practice.
All right. There is one more question. I'll just brief out this question. Just a moment. This is from Sneha madam. She says that what percentage of the syllabus required to be covered online as well as offline post the COVID? So she is asking whether we'll be able to complete the entire portion, online, or do we have to have a hybrid system?
Bagla ma'am, I think that's for you.
Yes. So as such, nothing has come as, if you look at UGC guidelines, that some percentage of component has to be online. But for autonomous colleges, for new universities, there is a mention about 20% component to be online. But what is the situation looking at this time? I think teachers should be ready now with current situation to start preparing lectures online. Whether they are using it, at least it will go in archive. So we cannot predict. Maybe that when it starts, the session starts, they may need sometimes, or there may be such situation that they will have to record such lectures. So it is good for creating e-content. So whether you're using your content or what is the content available on Swayam portal, on ePathshala, they should be ready. They should align the curriculum with those components and start preparing that with particular component they can encourage students to go online and start working on it. I've told my teachers that that coming year, semester 3 and semester 5, both the semesters, second year and third year, they should connect. They should see how which particular sections the students can go online, which they're available on different government portals, and even they start creating their e-contents. So I believe 20% yes, but they should be prepared. But they should be prepared for more. Okay, and there was a question on component as well. I saw that one of the questions. How do you conduct practicals? Somebody has asked.
Yeah.
So there is, because I just saw it appearing on the chat box. So when you're talking about theory and practicals, there is a concept of now virtual labs. So my microbiology department have started recording their practicals, and they started doing this much before this period. And this YouTube is on the YouTube. So once this your college is reopened, kindly start recording your practicals, because not only for your students, but you can reach out to masses. It's not about you are addressing now to 100 students. We all have to be ready that we are even reaching out to students who cannot do not have some facilities. But looking at a practical or a video, they may learn a lot. And because when you are doing live practical, when you're doing at that time, it only lasts, when you're doing one practical only once in a year. But when you are recording it, you can just watch it 24/7 throughout the year. So it is very important now that everything, what we talk, what we teach, and what we goes out to the students should be recorded.
Okay. Just to add one line, sorry, Jamin, to interject. Yeah. Many people are asking, what about conducting the practical? So there is something called as virtual labs. Okay, and virtual labs are, yes, where people can actually conduct the experiments virtually. It's even actually safer for many of the kinds of experiments which are there. Not that I'm an expert in chemistry or anything in front of ma'am, but there are experiments which you can do it in these virtual labs, which can be actually be much more safer for the students. And especially at this time, it's probably the only way to do it. So technology has no limits. As long as there are needs, solutions will be made.
Jamil, can I come in?
Yes, sir. Yes, Kalkoti.
Yeah, as far as arts and commerce colleges are concerned, syllabus is over now. In fact, they are waiting for the exams. They are ready for the exams. Okay, particularly third year students. First year and second year colleges are already conducted or they are halfway through. So online, offline is not applicable to arts and commerce students, at least this academic year. But of course, yes, when it comes to 2021, next academic year, like both the resource persons have opined, there is no alternative but to go online, either 60-70% or possibly fully. Thank you.
All right, Asif sir, there is one last question for you, and then we'll just conclude this session. The question is by Dr. Vijaya Jacqueline, and she asked that, sir, technology is a boon, but how are we addressing our rural stakeholders?
I think I get this question quite a lot. I've been, you know, in every forum which I have been discussing, everybody talks to me about the rural areas, and I don't know, maybe it's just me, but whenever I've been to rural India, I have never seen a lack of mobile phones anywhere. You know, I'm not saying these are high-end iPhones or anything, okay? But these are like 5,000, 6,000 bucks Android phones. Maybe not everybody in the household has one, but at least there is one in every household. So I don't think it's that big a challenge with companies making very affordable data plans, with Google setting up free Wi-Fi zones in every station, you know, with so many other companies coming in and creating free internet connectivity in majority of the villages. You know, you have areas where there is free Wi-Fi available. So as long as people have the need to study, and there is a way to study, they will find one solution. So that's not really a challenge. I know, I understand this. It's not coming to your home, but like you're going to college, you might have to go somewhere to get the Wi-Fi for some time to download everything. And then you can go back home and easily watch them in your own time. It's not necessary for you to stand there, wait there and create a crowd. Okay, but it's possible to do that.
Can I add something out here?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So under Pradhan Mantri Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, every college, every institution, if adopts 5 villages and reach out to these people and see that the students or the kids out there who are going to schools, they are, you know, you enable them to use technology. So many colleges are donating computers and setting the, you know, internet for them and working towards it. It is responsibility of each institution, because most of the institutions have NSS departments, and when one college is doing it, others also adopting it. So this is the way, if you're adopting 5 villages and reaching out to 5 villages and sending out the whatever you have gathered information to them, awareness program, posters, and you go and send out to them, or even they use the internet, they learn to download things. I think remaining 5-10% who are not reachable can also be made reachable.
Just one closing statement from my side. You know, at Vidyalankar, we always we say this a lot in Vidyalankar, that technology, you know, is not going to replace teachers, but teachers who do not adopt technology will be replaced. And so it's up to you, up to everybody to, you know, understand this, and it's very, very real now.
Very well said, Asif sir. Very well said.
So now we are actually flooded with, I mean, a lot of questions, but due to limitations of time, we are just concluding the question and answer session. And I now invite Dr. Kalkoti, principal of MVM College, to announce our third, you can say, webinar of this particular season. So this is the third installment that is coming up on next Saturday. I'll just request Kalkoti sir to announce it.
Yes, thanks, Jamil. Good evening, everyone. It's my proud privilege to invite all of you for the third session of this series. And the title of this series would be Strengthening College Education. The entire education will be now divided into 2 parts. One is pre-COVID and other one is post-COVID-19. Okay, so in post-COVID-19, there will be a lot of opportunity and responsibility for the educational institutions. So this particular webinar we are planning to host on the 9th May 2020 between 5 and 6:30 p.m. like we had today. It could be in line with how colleges can strengthen themselves by upgrading teaching standards, by investing more time on students, by upgrading the college with more technology, with whatever technology they already have and own. I'll not talk much about this. Let the speakers on this platform, whom I'm going to invite, will throw light on this. I have invited two eminent speakers for this webinar. One is the principal of K.E. Shroff College, Principal Dr. Lily Bhushan, and the other one is Principal of L.S. Raheja College, Principal Dr. Debojit Sarkar. Both of them have been kind enough to accept our invitation, and both of them will be addressing to this issue of strengthening the college education next week. So on behalf of my management, on my behalf, and on behalf of my faculty, and also on behalf of Jaimin, who is co-hosting this, I take this opportunity to invite all of you to be pleased there, attend the seminar, contribute to this, and see that you get yourself upgraded. On that note, I leave it back to Jaimin. Thank you, Jaimin.
Yeah, so at the end, I will just invite one of the most known face in the industry, Dr. Shubha Menon, to just address the entire audience, all the participants. Dr. Shubha Menon.
Thank you, Jaimin. Well, what can I say after a session like this? First and foremost, a very big thank you to both the speakers. The way they have addressed the issues and how informative the session was. There was not a single dull moment. There was not a single moment in the session when one's attention diverted, which is really amazing when we talk about something online. Also, thanks a lot to all the participants who joined in, who engaged with us and have been continuously putting up beautiful messages praising the webinar. Before I end, when Jaimin came to me with this idea, and we thought, we kind of brainstormed on this, I felt I should pick up this topic for two reasons. One, when it is Jaimin, it's equal to technology, because Jaimin is our technology partner. We have their app. We've implemented it this year, and all my teachers, all my students, and the parents will also vouch for the fact that really a lot of things have changed after we have implemented Teach Us, a platform which allows us to have an interaction with our students. They are able to see their attendance online. We are able to upload notes, notices, everything online. So it has made a lot of difference to our stakeholders. So when Jaimin came up with this, and the second reason was because with the situation as it is currently with COVID, I think we have all realized that technology is the only way forward. And as Professor Asif rightly put it, people who don't adapt and adopt technology, faculty who don't adapt and adopt technology, will be definitely phased out of the system, because that is the way in which we are heading. What we need, of course, is a blended approach wherein we have technology and personal one-to-one interactions also, because still our students have to get familiar with it. On this note, I thank all those present here. Thank you, Kalkoti sir, too, for your presence here.
Just a minute. It is very, very proud moment for me, because I never knew that Jaimin is my student. Years ago, he was my student at Nagindas Kandwala College. When he met me last year with this proposal, he first put the proposal. After it was okay, then he told, sir, if you remember, I'm your student. So it is a proud moment for me. My student is doing well, and today I'm sharing platform with him. Jamit, for any good academic work, we are all with you. Go ahead. We'll simply say, just do it. Nike side. All the best.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much to all the speakers and all the participants. And
Yeah.
just, let you know about the statistics. We have more than 25, 250 unique colleges participants who have joined. And participation was as high as around 400 participants at a particular moment. So thank you everyone for a huge success of this particular webinar. And we all invite you for the next webinar, which is going to be held on the next Saturday around 5 to 6. We request you all to just fill the feedback form, which will be shared to you on the WhatsApp group. We really request that you fill the feedback form, and it will be really great for us to have a new idea about the other sessions. So, all right, thank you so much, everyone. It was
Jamin, just a second, Jamin. Yeah, Jamin, if you could share the PPTs too.
sure.
Yeah.
All right, we'll share all the materials given by all the resource person on the WhatsApp group, so that even everybody will have that, and everybody can check what is there inside it.
Jamin, I've sent it to you on WhatsApp, so you can share
Yes.
it.
Okay. Thank you.
So
everybody.
thank you all. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you so much. Thank you, Shobha. Thank you, Kalkoti sir. Thank you, Jamin. Thank you, Asif. And thank you to all the participants for patient listening.
It was truly a pleasure to share the stage with all of you all. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. Everybody can leave the meeting now, no problem.